In a universe that almost is, just out of reach beyond the edge of reality, mysterious forces underlie the fabric of existence. Energematrice6, the very energy of creation, serves as both the elixir of life and the arsenal of destruction for its human and not-so-human denizens.
Crushing darkness, whose source they cannot fathom, grips the cosmos and its people. In anguish, they dream of the long-foretold bright star.
Join us as we embark on an epic journey, exploring the universe of Energematrice6.
And welcome, everybody. We are live. This is the Energematrice6 podcast. This is episode 25. All of our tech is working properly this time, despite a little bit of delay in me trying to make it work properly. It actually worked the first time this time, so that's good. Welcome, Mel. Welcome, Luke. Welcome, audience. And we have second and third here to read their parts today as well. This is going to be chapter 2 of the Veil of Mysteries, and real quick before we get started, let's go ahead and do this. The Energematrice6 podcast operates on a value-for-value model. That means that we hope if we provide some value to you in your life, that you'll return that to us in whatever way you can manage. If you're interested, head over to e6universe.com and sign up for our email list to get our free ebooks, and hopefully buy a physical book or some merch while you're there. Or if all you can manage right now is to leave us a good review somewhere, 5 stars or some kind of positive rating, that's more than appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, that connection is just wonderful. Okay, so you are still recording properly, Mel. It is not going to show your camera for now, but we'll just do what we can. It's one of those days. So let's see. I'm going to do that. All right. I will try bringing Mel back as soon as it is her turn. In the meantime, we're going to keep going. So, let's see. Just a second. There. So this is chapter 2 of the Veil of Mysteries, and it starts with a quote: "Don't look back. Adamant is our home now. It's people that matter. You and Andy and Shauna make it my home." Jim Logan to his daughter Shannon on their flight from Earth, 2142 AD. Let's see. Jim Logan to his daughter Shannon on their flight from Earth, 2142 AD. Over the next 3 days, Ty spent most of his time sleeping when he wasn't taking his own turn on watch. In Ty's little remaining time awake, Nate noticed he also made a point of helping Shauna tend the corridor garden. Kevin, on the other hand, mostly withdrew into his own private world. Later on during their second day in the Vale, Kevin joined Nate, Ty, Andrew, and Shauna for a meal of fresh produce harvested from Adamant's corridors. Sitting at the table in the galley, Nate's first taste of produce grown in the ship itself was surprisingly good. "This is even better than normal grapes. And what is this? Spinach?" he asked. Andrew nodded wryly.
Yeah, it tastes pretty good until it's all you've had to eat for months. It's got enough nutrients in it you can live on it, though. If you eat enough of the leafy stuff. They had an easier time modifying these.
Modifying? Nate asked.
Yeah, when they left Earth they had to modify some of it to add the nutrients we were missing. We still have seeds for some of the ancestral stuff, in case we ever find a place where it could grow, but it doesn't do all that well in space.
Ty shook his head.
I can't imagine how you must have lived.
Shauna grinned.
You think we can imagine how you've lived? Being out in the open air is scary. I couldn't leave the ship on a I couldn't even leave the ship. I couldn't even leave the ship on Eteria, and all the people.
How about this? I couldn't even leave the ship on Eteria. How about that?
Okay. I couldn't even leave the ship on Eteria, and all the people. There are so many here. When you talk about the Telestri or the Dominion, how many people are in the Dominion?
Ty shrugged.
I can't imagine how
No. What are you doing?
A few 100 billion depends on how you... A few 100 billion depends on who you believe.
Shauna laughed.
I saw 100 people together once. But only once. People here have no idea how blessed they are to live so freely.
Ty snorted.
Freely? The Dominion doesn't let people live freely. There are taxes and registries and regulations. Just flying around on this ship is more freedom than most people in the galaxy ever have.
Andrew asked quietly.
What about freedom not to live on a ship? That's a freedom we've never had.
Ty nodded thoughtfully, and Kevin broke in. Speaking of the ship, can we see the engines? Andrew looked surprised.
The engines? You mean the power plant?
Kevin grinned, twirling his UPT between his fingers. Yeah, I never seen a ship that actually runs on E6.
Oh.
Andrew said, then shrugged.
Sure, I can give all three of you a tour if you'd like.
They all agreed and rose to leave the galley. Looking back as he led them down the corridor toward the bridge, Andrew said,
When Adamant was built, Bright Future put in 12 private staterooms. You've all seen those. They're spaced around this quarter of the ship.
Andrew motioned to his left as he passed the bridge.
And of course you've seen the bridge. This hatch...
Andrew indicated the one on his right, between the private staterooms that was a deep maroon and... Andrew indicated the one on his right, between the private staterooms, that was a deep maroon instead of the usual gray.
is one of the two that leads to the power plant and ship mechanisms. I'd like to save that till the end.
Andrew continued walking around the ship's perimeter until they reached the airlock. He turned right then, opening the extra-large hatch across from the airlock and passing through.
This is the storage area.
He gestured to hatches spaced very close together on both sides of the short, double-wide corridor in which they now stood.
Each compartment's environmentals can be managed separately. Whether we need cold storage, vacuum, or zero humidity, we can get it because these compartments are completely separated from the rest of the ship.
Andrew opened one of the hatches and motioned inside, giving each of them a chance to see the mostly bare compartment lined with racks. There was a gap along the left side of the room, and it took Nate a moment to realize that one rack was folded up to the wall. Andrew made a face.
The rest are all jammed full. We emptied that one to pay the portmaster at Eteria.
Their next stop was 2 doors further along the main corridor. Andrew opened the hatch and stuck his head through, and then pulled it back again and stood to the side to let the other 3 enter.
It's the rec room.
Andrew said.
Mostly for exercise, but we have a few games. We've all pretty much done them to death, though.
The rec room had a number of devices spaced around the perimeter. Nate was able to recognize a fold-down treadmill of sorts with what looked like elastic bands attached to the sides, and a rotary mechanism vaguely reminiscent of a bicycle. There were also weights securely fastened into a rack with a weight bench folded up against the wall next to them. The next hatch Andrew stopped at was white with a red cross on it. At the sight of the symbol, Ty smirked.
I guess not everything has changed in 1,000 years. Is this your...
Dispensary?
I guess not everything. I guess not everything has changed in 1,000 years. Is this your dispensary?
Andrew grinned.
Not the word I'd have used, but basically, yeah. We can do a pretty thorough body scan and we have a good suite of medical equipment, but none of us really know how to use most of it. Thankfully, beyond cuts and scrapes, we haven't had to use much of it. Thankfully, beyond cuts and scrapes, we haven't had much use for it. And Shauna can do more with E6 than any of us could manage with that stuff.
After they were done in the dispensary, Andrew opened the very next hatch.
Most of these compartments are conversion rooms. They can be configured as staterooms or storage or just about anything else we want.
Ty nodded, grimacing in memory.
Right. This is where we stowed all the parts from Resolute.
The compartment was half full of a variety of salvage, all secured to the walls and floor with straps next to a similar hatch, apparently a closet. They passed another dark maroon hatch, and Andrew nodded toward it.
Smaller hatch?
They passed another dark maroon hatch, and Andrew nodded toward it.
We'll come back here in just a minute. Other than the galley, which you've already seen, the only thing that's left before the power plant is the machine shop.
It was a much longer stretch of corridor before the hatch to the machine shop. Upon entering the compartment, Andrew motioned around at 4 or 5 different devices that ranged from puzzling but familiar to completely unrecognizable. Nate thought he recognized a lathe and some kind of milling device, but the other machines were totally unfamiliar to him. Andrew glanced around the compartment with what might have been regret.
Theoretically, we could make almost anything we need in here, but it's like the dispensary. None of us really knows how to use most of it very well. Shannon learned a little from Dad before he died. I'm just glad Adamant's still in good shape. We'll have to find somebody who knows how to do a real maintenance check. We'll have to find somebody who knows how to do a real maintenance check at some point. Good as Shannon is, she's no geotic.
Nate nodded, and they turned to retrace their steps to the maroon hatch from earlier. Before he opened the hatch, Andrew turned to them, his face serious.
We can take a look around, but don't get too close to anything. This stuff is sensitive, and Shannon will kill me if we break anything. If whatever we break doesn't kill us first.
When Andrew opened the hatch, Nate could see a long, featureless hallway with another hatch at the opposite end. It was beyond that hatch that everything changed. What registered in Nate's mind first was the lack of light. Every other space in the ship had been bright and well lit. Every other space in the ship had been bright and well lit. This compartment, if he could call it that, was dim or even dark, in the maze of recesses and corners leading off in every direction. It was also huge, and Nate realized that the rest of the ship's compartments, all at the same level where he stood, were contained inside this one, which was effectively the entire interior of the ship. All in all, Adamant was more like a metal balloon with little pods welded to the inside perimeter for living quarters. In front of them, at the ship's core, a monstrous sphere leaked multicolored light from a jagged seam running all the way around its perimeter. When Nate looked at the huge thing through the fields, it was so blinding he quickly released Energematrice6 and blinked his physical eyes in reaction. Both above their heads and below their feet, huge shapes stretched into the murk. Andrew was pointing at one device after another, some of which protruded over or under the other compartments in the ship. The inertial
sump energy converter, the shield capacitors, the field emission controller, and that's the gravity synthesizer.
He shrugged.
There's plenty more, but most of it's just names if you don't know what it does. How it works is too much for me most days. If you really want to know, you'll have to ask Shannon.
What about the engines?
Ty was practically bent over double, looking underneath some strange device in front of him.
Adamant doesn't have engines,
Andrew said.
The same field emitters are used for the shields, the drive, and the particle collision system.
He indicated the sphere in front of them.
That's the power plant, of course. It's the most obvious thing in here. I also can't really open it up to show you while we're under Retin drive, and definitely don't get too close.
He eyed Ty, who had wandered forward onto a huge chunk of grating that served as a floor for most of the compartment. Ty grinned at him, but nodded and came back to stand with the others on the one solid platform that protruded into the great cavity.
We can even get to the nutrient panels on the corridor walls from here if they needed tending. They rarely do, but...
He shrugged.
Bright Future built Adamant so it could be maintained completely in space for as long as possible. There's nothing in here that wasn't made to be broken down and rebuilt, and a lot of it's overdue.
He grimaced. What's Bright Future? Kevin asked, as Andrew turned back to the corridor they'd entered through. Andrew shrugged.
It was the name Paul and Carl and Dad and the others took up when they decided to oppose Lastus. It just sort of stuck. There's not much left of it now, I'm afraid. After they left Earth, they would stop in other star systems and set up a base for a year or two, getting further and further away from Sol as time went on. That's when they built Adamant and her sisters. The ships they left Earth with were barely better than the changed ships. They were slow and clumsy. They learned a lot before they built Adamant, thank the Lightmaker.
Andrew grimaced, showing remembered stress from a time now long past.
The changed had to build big, clumsy ships, though. Dad and the others were strong energematrists. They'd smash up whatever ships the changed sent after us and leave them floating in space with all the changed still in them. Then move on to the next base. The changed built their ships bigger and more powerful. We chose faster and more agile. It worked. For a while.
They were back in the main corridor by then, and Andrew shrugged, turning away, obviously absorbed in his memories as they headed back toward the bridge. He didn't speak again, but the darkness that haunted his eyes spoke for him. After their second day traveling, Nate's fitful sleep again at the rear of the bridge was haunted by terrible dreams. He couldn't recall them when he awoke, but he found himself drenched in sweat, his face streaked with tears, and he couldn't remember crying. He couldn't recall them when he woke, but he found himself drenched in sweat, his face streaked with tears he couldn't remember crying. There had been a boy, but the dream faded away even as he tried to recall it. Looking up, he caught Andrew grumbling at his console and asked what was bothering him. Andrew shrugged uncomfortably.
This place really is unnatural. It isn't just the gravity,
He rubbed the back of his neck.
It's like it's eating our propulsion. We're only getting 70% of our normal acceleration in here. It's just not right.
Nate nodded wryly, still feeling half smothered by his nightmare. He couldn't help thinking the darkness he felt and the strange physics of their surroundings were connected. It's definitely strange. It was Laura who, after they'd been traveling through the Veil for more than 60 hours straight, was the first to see their destination coming on the console and slammed her emergency stop. Andrew was at the controls, only a heartbeat behind her, but before Adamant could actually come to a stop, they had broken through the wall of dust surrounding Sanctuary. Nate was the only other person on the bridge at the time, a testament to the strange comfort he felt with the surrounding dust. His first reaction upon emerging was a surprise at how bright it was. The blue-white light from Sanctuary's sun reflected and refracted from the wall of dust. Even more than a light hour away from the star itself, everything was brilliantly, almost glaringly bright. Okay, let's see if... Mel, can you hear us? Okay, so I'm not sure what to do here. I may have to just record that one word afterward because she can see us, she can hear us, but she can't talk right now, and that is messed up. Let me see. Yeah, it's not allowing her to record. So I'm just going to hide you again, and we'll finish it out, and we'll try to record a single word later and see what we can do with it. All right. Wow, Laura said. Andrew was already on shipwide broadcast.
All crew to the bridge. We made it.
Within a minute, everyone except Kevin had crowded through the hatch, only to stop, stunned, staring at the view before them. It wasn't just that it was bright. It was like being perched on a thunderhead high in the sky on a summer day, if the clouds had all been made of rainbow dust. The star before them was a tiny point of light, almost distant enough to belong to some other system, but it lit up their surroundings so powerfully it hardly seemed like they were still in the void of space. When Kevin did finally arrive a few minutes later, blinking away sleep, he took one look out the great window and grinned. Gotta say, no place like home. Andrew, characteristically, had been focused on more than just the view.
I'm seeing 4 small inner planets and 2 giant outer planets. Should only take a minute to get locations on the big man-mades.
As the other's dazzlement began to wear off, Andrew nodded.
I'm seeing something big around the second planet, and I'm not sure what that one is next to the gas giant.
He glanced up at Kevin.
Where do we go from here?
Kevin grimaced. The only object in the outer system is hope, and nobody ever visits. We're headed for the second planet. That's where Sanctuary is. Kevin's gaze was fixed out the window with something less than eagerness, but he said no more.
Hope?
Shannon asked, her brow furrowed. Yeah, it's the ship that brought us, humans, to the Aurora Galaxy. Paul Cassizia parked it here almost 1,000 years ago. Andrew, Shannon, and Shauna all stared at him for a moment, eyes wide.
Can we go see it?
Shauna seemed almost breathless. Even Ty looked eager. Kevin laughed grimly. The council always said Paul put traps everywhere out here. They won't let anybody go to look, and before us only the keeper could get in and out of the veil. The other passengers all looked a bit crestfallen, and Ty looked at Nate, eyes pleading. It took another hour to reach the second planet, and as they decelerated into orbit, Nate glanced from one to another of his friends with a slight smile on his face. That was quite a trip. He looked down, frowning, then back up at Andrew, Shannon, and Shauna in turn, and gave them each a nod, adding, "Thank you." Then he turned his gaze back to the planet below. "So, Kevin, where should we be landing?" Kevin laughed. We don't have to land. They're on the space station, and you might want to call ahead. They don't exactly have a lot of guests drop in. His statement prompted another burst of activity from Andrew.
Nice to know,
he grumbled, scowling at Kevin. As if at Kevin's prompt, a few seconds later, they received a hail. It was old-fashioned radio, carrying a video file. With a little effort, Andrew put the video on the inside of the main window. The face that came on the screen didn't look quite as young as they did, 14 or 15 perhaps, with black hair and a vaguely Southeast Asian cast. When he spoke, it was with the same accent they'd come to expect from Kevin. I wonder, do you think you can do a slight Australian accent? You want to try?
Probably. I can try it.
Well, you're reading Andrew. You might as well do one more. I'm not going to read another if I can help it. So you're up on Jesse.
Okay. Give me a sec here. Unknown vessel. This is Jesse Galton, son of Taryn Galton, keeper of the mysteries. Welcome to Sanctuary. Please state your business.
The face faded out after he'd spoken, and Nate turned to Andrew. Do you have a video pickup?
Yeah.
Andrew motioned to one of the control stations. A moment later, Nate strapped himself into the control station. They were weightless again after disengaging their retin drive for planetary approach, making the restraints necessary, and he was ready to broadcast. Jesse, this is the vessel Adamant responding. My name is Nate, and I've come to see if John and Rachel Cassizia are still here. I was informed that the Dominion had taken your father captive. I bring you his sigil as surety. Nate held up the sigil, then frowned. Nate held up the sigil, then frowned and shook his head. I'm truly sorry about the Dominion. Would it be possible for us to meet in person? It took only a few seconds to receive a reply.
Brightstar? Welcome. Yes. The Cassissias are here. Sorry. Yes, the Cassissias are still here. We've been awaiting your arrival. Please join us at Lighthouse Station. We'll have a berth ready for you.
Perfect. Good job, Luke. I know I hit you with that one by surprise, but you did great. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And Mel, I appreciate it. I think she can still hear me. Either way, I will make sure we get that one word recorded and add that in. And thank you, second. Thank you, third. You both did good. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, audience. And we will catch everybody next week.